Okay, welcome back. Our next topic is going to be the project charter. So once we've looked at our FMEA and we've decided what area we need to work on the most, that gives us a good foundation for saying, okay, let's take on a project. This is a pretty difficult problem. We've got to have multiple people working on it. If we're going to come up with that robot hamburger flipper, that's a pretty complex project. So it's going to we need to go through and do a project charter for it. So a project charter is a document that you use to communicate your project, and it has the scope and the objectives and the people involved in the project. It's a way to formally authorize a project. So you're going to share this document with your black belt or your supervisor and possibly top management, and you're going to get their buy-in. It's very important to have senior management buy in to the project that you're proposing to work on. That's critical to success of that project. If senior management doesn't buy into it, if it doesn't align with the strategic um, goals of the company, then it's probably not going to succeed. And this project charter is going to detail out the why you're doing the project, who's going to do it, what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, and how you're going to do it. But you may not know all of that right at the beginning. So this is another document that is a very living document. You're going to come back to it and update it. After you have your first meeting, you're going to update that project charter and say, okay, here's what we decided we were going to do, what we can do. We're going to collect some data. So you might have to come back after you've collected some data to put together into your project charter. So before you presented it to top management, you might have to do a little bit of homework. This project charter is important because it creates a shared understanding amongst everybody, and it's something that everybody can look at, hold on to. They can see where they fit into the project, and it's frankly a marketing tool so that you can get other people on board with your project. So here's an example. It lists the project name at the top, and then who the sponsor is, what date it's approved, and the description of the project. So that's pretty, it's a robot spatula. That might be enough for the project description. Your scope is this is going to apply to the kitchens of our restaurant, and we're not going to try to make a robot spatula that anybody everywhere can use, even at home. So those are things that are outside the scope. The business case is one of the most important parts of the project charter. And here you want to be as specific as possible. So you say, I want to increase orders per sales team member by 20% from current levels, to reduce unhandled costs to 0% and increase customer satisfaction by 10 points. So you see we've got some numbers in there, and it's relative to where we're at currently. And so this business case, and it might also have some financial terms to it as well. We're going to try to increase sales by 20%, and then we may also say that that's going to result in profits of additional $5,000 per sales team member. Okay, and then you have some constraints listed, maybe in priority order, so time, budget, scope, quality, whatever those constraints or other aspects of the form. Just fill out the form. It's pretty straightforward. The deliverables. So what do we expect to get from this project? You might first have a project for the robot spatula that we're going to make a prototype. And so your deliverable is to make a prototype robot spatula. And you're just going to make one. And you're going to test and see how it works and see if you can integrate it into a restaurant. So those are the deliverables. It's not like you're going to have 100 robots across all the restaurants across the country. You could put that as a project deliverable maybe on the next project. And then you can put down the benefits and have some measurable results. So there's that term KPI, a key process indicator. So something like orders per salesperson. And the baseline was 20, that's where we're at now. And we want to improve that by 20%, so we're going to get to 24. Then there's the people involved, the steering committee, the project team itself, and then maybe some key stakeholders. So we'll look at the stakeholders, might be the shareholders, maybe the customers, and then a list of risk. You know, you might have a little risk analysis with this, where, say for example, no team member have any previous experience with an IVR setup. So there's a risk that they, have underestimated the amount of work that's involved. So those are risks. Let's understand those risks. Maybe then we can come up with a way of measuring them. So that's pretty much the project charter. So I want you to take this time now to use the project charter template and create a project charter for a product or process that you select. Just fill out, get familiar with the form, filling out the form. It's quick and easy to do, so there's no reason why you shouldn't do it when you're planning your project. So take a few minutes to do that, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Okay, and you could have stopped the video, and now you're starting it back, and we're going to look at a Gemba walk, and this is also called a waste walk. And this is where management, supervisors, or anybody in the company can walk through an area, and let's see if we can really observe what's going on in that area and try to understand it and try to look at things that are actually adding value. And then, after we've done that, then we could maybe offer some solutions, some innovative ways to improve the conditions. Or we might see that they were using a worn out hammer or a screwdriver and it just wasn't working. So it's pretty easy when we do this walk to go through and identify some of those areas. And something that pretty much anybody can do. And we can see that section where it says subtracting value. Where are you losing value in the existing process and why? So you be looking on the lookout for defects. That's obvious if you had to do something, or if you have to do it twice, then you're subtracting value from that process. So a Gemba walk, the way you do this is you select a particular value stream, and this means you don't necessarily walk through the whole company. Your company makes cars, your company makes trucks, and your company makes copiers. So we're going to look at the value stream of making trucks, for example, or maybe just making the engines for the trucks. So you start at the closest process step to your customer. So you want to get the finished product, and then you start working backwards through that process. The last thing was the test of that engine. So you go through each different department in every functional area, and you keep in mind that value is created in that process throughout the organization. But most organizations are vertically structured. So you just you'll be cutting across departments. You might go from the engine test department to the engine installation department, and then to the engine machining department, whatever it might be. So you invite every stream owner, every value stream owner, the employee, the middle manager, the leader of that department or section, to be part of it. You want them to be involved in your walk, and you want to ask them about what they're doing, how they do it, who does it, why do they do it. Just keep asking questions. Try to get a certain level of understanding, and see if they have some solutions to problems. When you're observing, you want to look, is the target condition at each process step understood? So when, for example, the operator tests the engine, do they understand that if the engine's making a lot of noise, that's not good? So, and how do they understand that? Do they know that if it's over 81 decibels, it's bad. If it's under 81 decibels, it's good. So is there a numerical number? And what is the actual condition at each process step? And is that known? So do we know if we put it together properly? Or how well did it fit together? And are there obstacles or problems that prevent us from reaching the target condition? We're talking about the measurement phase here, so we want to look at are we measuring what we need to about that process to understand, so that the people that are doing it understand that they were successful or not successful. Did they achieve the target condition? And is that condition identified? Is there a quality plan? Do they know it? Is it handy in the work area? And what obstacles are being addressed already, and what are the next obstacles to address? And is there learning and sharing throughout? So is everybody working with other people, or does one person have the special knack and nobody else knows what it is? So that's a Gemba walk. But before you get into a Gemba walk, you sort of need to know what kinds of things to look for. And those are identified in lean as the waste. So those waste, and here you can see a little picture. In a morning walk can brighten a day, cause some to smile, and invigorate the mind, body, and soul. A morning waste walk can do all of that and improve a little bit each day. So the whole ideal of lean is to improve a little bit every day. So you would do this Gemba walk every day, walk through and see what kind of problems are going on and what are we doing to fix it. And this mnemonic, Tim Woods, gives you some ideas about where to look. So we've talked about these briefly before, but I really want you to understand and learn these possible types of waste. That the objective of lean is to eliminate waste, and these are the types of waste that lean can help you eliminate. And first you have to understand what those wastes are. And the first one is overproduction, producing more than the market needs. This is not just producing more than what the work order was, your internal work order, but really if more than what the customer wanted. So if you can't sell it, then you shouldn't have produced it. And then waiting, if we have goods that are in the warehouse, then they're waiting. Or if we have people showing up late and we've got 3 other people waiting on them before we start the line, then that's a waste. So documents, if we put papers into an inbox and they sit there for 3 weeks before we do something with them, then that's waiting. And that's a waste. And then transporting materials and products. We want to try to minimize the transportation, especially internally. Obviously, when we make it at the factory, we've got to ship it to the customer. And shipping it to the customer is a value to the customer because it gets it from us to them. So that has some value. Over-processing, taking unneeded steps to process a part. For example, if you pick it up with your right hand and then you put it in your left hand and then you set it on the table and you pick up the screw that goes into it, so you've over-processed it because you used one hand and then the other hand. You could have done that, put it on the table with just one hand. So over-processing sometimes is a little bit more difficult to identify. But when you see a person who really knows how to do the job and is doing it really well, and then you compare them to somebody that's new, you'll see overprocessing with that new person because they haven't learned the knack and the process for making it yet. Inventory, as we mentioned earlier, that's goods waiting. So specifically inventory, any kind of unnecessary supplies in stock. And unnecessary, you might say, well, we want to have 10 on hand because we're going to use 10 today. But if we have 12 on hand, then that was a little bit of extra waste. But if we only had 9, then we didn't have enough inventory, and we wasted because we didn't have enough to produce the order for that day. Movement, searching for unnecessary movements throughout your process, anywhere that you're moving things that you didn't need to. Defects obviously are waste. And finally, unused expertise. So, if you have a smart person who can help solve problems, but you don't give them the authority to make small changes to their own process to improve it, then that's unused expertise. So if you take all of those words, you can go back to that mnemonic Tim Woods, which is transportation, inventory, movement, and W is waiting, and then you have 2 O's, so you have overprocessing and overproduction. And D and S, so the D is defects, and S is the unused expertise or knowledge. Okay, so let's look at how we might record the results of our Gemba walk. And this is, or a waste walk. And that's with a waste walk form. And it's very simple. You just start out by listing the process or location down the left side. Then whatever observation you see of waste, you record that. And then you check off what kind of waste is it. So if you come to the first place and you see 50 empty boxes already made up, and you're only going to normally make 30 boxes a day, then you've got some waste in empty boxes that were overproduced. So that's overproduction. You also have excess inventory, so you might have a check in a couple of the areas. And then let's look at a waste walk summary. And of course here it was summarized into a spreadsheet. So just formalized it a little bit more. And we have the department that we were in, the process that we were looking at, barrel cleaning. And then we look at each step of the process, who was doing it, what day we looked at it, what kind of waste, what the problem was. So this first one, the final step is not required. There's an in-process check with the barrel closing step. So update the form used at the barrel closing. So whatever this process is, they started at the end, recall that, and they looked at what they were doing, and they decided, oh, we didn't even need to be doing that because we were already checking it earlier. So it's pretty easy to walk through any operation and see what the wastes are. So now your task will be to complete a Gemba walk, walk one day through an operation at your place or at your school, wherever it might be, and record the value stream activities in that area. Try to use a team of 2 or 3 people so that you might get together with your other apprentices and walk through a department. Be sure to involve the department supervisors. Tell them what you're doing. You're just walking through looking for waste. And turn in a copy of your waste walk to your supervisor. And also, I want you to scan a copy of your waste walk to me so that we can look at them at the next class. So that's the end of our online session. You will also be taking a test, so you can go back and look through this again if you need to. We talked about the cost of quality, preventive cost, and failure cost. So we talked about the different types of waste. We talked about the FMEA, the failure mode effect analysis. We talked about the project charter, and we talked about the SIPOC. So we had hit a lot of topics and tools of Lean and Six Sigma tonight. So thanks for listening, and have a good day.